Hello and welcome to Book Lovers Companion, the podcast about books, authors, their craft, and more. My name is Edith, and the guest in this episode, again from across the pond, is Remington Keyes. He's from Massachusetts, or he is in Massachusetts, and he's here to talk about his book, Homie and the Redneck. But first, here's my guest, Remington Keyes. Hello, Remington, and welcome to the show.
Hello, good evening. How are you doing today?
If you want to know how we're doing here in Vienna, let me tell you, it was the first time in a long time that we have seen the sun again.
Oh, man.
Because there's been a lot of fog this last week and it's awful. And if it's there, it stays that way. So it's always nice to see the sun again.
We got a lot of snow here in Massachusetts. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no snow here, but a lot of fog. And, that's maybe also the reason why people in Vienna are usually a bit grumpy. Who knows? Maybe that's it. Remington, you are here, like I said in my introduction, to talk about your book, Homie and the Redneck.
Yeah.
A title which makes me wonder, what can you tell us about the title of your book? Because the word redneck, you know what I mean when I say,
Well, the inspiration for the title was from my old radio show. I used to host a radio show called Homie and the Redneck with my nephew, who's a couple years younger than me, and I would say he's more hillbilly than a city kid. So that's kind of where the redneck part of it comes from. And it's just kind of like a story about two people from different worlds coming together to like kind of work together and do something good. They're trying to fix their radio station and they're coming from two different worlds, so it's hard for them to get along in the beginning. But with a common goal, they're able to get past their differences and become friends. So
Okay, and what I also wanted to ask is, since the radio show is featuring as the main part or the main thing in this book, how important is radio for certain parts of the United States still?
I think because a lot of people are driving and get a lot of information from like media, that it's super important because whether it's going to be satellite radio or just regular FM AM radio, it's always going to be part of your car and your way to kind of like going to work and stuff. So I think it's like super important. I think more people listen to the radio than they would like television news, because it's more available when you're driving and like going out and about. A lot of people just turn the radio on to listen. So that makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And given the fact that in the United States you usually drive longer distances than we do here in Europe, it probably makes more sense to listen to radio station when you're driving than you do probably here in Europe. Is it still true? Because I'm wondering, because we have this thing with audiobooks and so on, but radio is still also important, would you say, not just in your car, but also at home?
I don't think it's as much at home because I think people would listen to podcasts and stuff at home. But a lot of radio shows that I've listened to end up recording their radio show and putting it as a podcast format anyways. So I would kind of put them together, as an importance.
Oh, yeah, true. And since you've talked a bit or introduced us to the idea of the title for your book, can you dive a little bit deeper into the whole book? What is going on? Who are the main characters? What can our readers expect or listeners expect without, of course, giving too much away?
Well, the main characters are based off me and my nephew Logan. and but their code names, their radio names would be Homie and the Redneck. And Remington would be a little bit based off me. He's a hip hop DJ, does like a hip hop show, and Logan, who would be the redneck, would be more country, country music and stuff. And together they make a blend that's like country hip hop, which is like the stories kind of the country, but like with like hip hop beats and stuff. And it's kind of like a blend together. And it's they just come from different worlds. One's a city kid, the other one is more country or I don't even know like the right words to say it, but like just like country area redneck hillbilly kind of stuff. And so anybody that knows people from either side will know that they usually clash when they get together. There's not usually a lot of similarities, but these they're coming together to find that out.
And it's also about not just coming together, and they have a common goal, don't
Right.
they?
Yeah,
That's
to
also
save
the
the radio
reason.
station. The radio station's kinda been going under for years, like a lot of, like, American businesses, they don't
Mm.
change, they don't update, and so, like, this is kinda getting run down, and they need to raise the money so they can bring it back up so they don't lose their jobs and keep it updated for modern audiences.
And you said there's this combination of the more city kid person and the country person. So, um, bringing together the differences. I mean, like you said, a hip hop fan and the country fan.
Right,
It's an interesting mixture because you wouldn't and I don't know uh think that they have a lot in common,
right.
uh music taste wise. Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong.
right.
Yeah, music taste wise, but uh do you think that we can they can at least, or is it possible to at least appreciate each other's taste or accept
Well,
each other's
I think
taste?
the premise is important, especially this year, because there's so many people doing the crossover. There's been a lot of
Yeah.
black country music artists this year come out. Like, I
Yeah.
think was it Beyonce created a country song, and the Shabuzi, and there's a bunch of people that are kind of doing that crossover right
Mhm.
now. So I think the premise is going to be more relevant now than ever. It's almost like it's ahead of the time. It came out a year before this big country boom. So
Okay. Do you have any idea what inspired this country boom?
I think it was when there was a black music artist that did a song with Billy Ray Cyrus, and I
Mm,
can't think of his name right now. It's
mhm.
like escaping me. But I think that when they saw him kind of blow up doing the song Old Town Road, I don't know if you're familiar with the song Old Town Road.
Not really, no, sorry.
It was really big in the US, and I think with that becoming really big, a lot of people wanted to dip their hands into country music and do that crossover.
Mm, okay. So that was more or less the starting point. I just when you said, black people, performing country music, and I immediately thought of this, female group of, I think they are cousins. I looked them up, Chapel Hart, who performed their own version of, the Jolene song,
Mhm.
you
Oh,
know?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Jolene, yep,
yeah, you can have him, Jolene, and I heard that, I think it was on YouTube or somewhere, and I thought, "That's a great song. It's
right,
wonderful."
yeah. Yeah, it's an amazing song. There's a bunch of people who've done really good covers of that song,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, and I think, Dolly Parton also enjoyed it a lot because the song itself, it did they did change the lyrics, of course, but it was wonderful, and, I think people also listened then to Dolly Parton
mhm, oh,
again.
yeah, Dolly Parton's huge.
Yeah, yeah. And do you think that, I mean, your nephew, is, one features as one of the characters in the book, more or less features as one of the characters. And how much input did he have in creating this book?
He hasn't had any input on the book, but he was a huge inspiration just from all the years of us doing this radio show and the years of
Yeah,
adventures
yeah.
we have gone on together, especially as the duo Homie and the Redneck. I mean, he was like a huge inspiration. A lot of what I took when creating this
Mhm.
character, was straight out of real life. Stuff that, his little, sayings and, his personality and, like, love of country music. Even for Christmas this year, I got him, the best of '80s country. I mean, that's like that was his big Christmas gift, He's got a big love for music, and, I can't thank him enough for actually being a part of our radio show because I think he's brought a lot of stuff that was obscure, that a lot of people music that a lot of people had forgotten about,
Mhm.
but he's got it all up there, so he could put stuff on the air that maybe people wouldn't be used to or hearing on the radio, and it brings that memory of like, "Oh, man, that was a good song. We haven't heard that in 20 years," you know? Like,
Yeah.
he's really, like, a genius when it comes to music.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. It also made me think of one of our radio hosts here in Vienna, and he's a famous person. He is really famous because his first career was football player, and when I say football player, I mean what you call soccer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and he played for a football club here in Vienna, a very popular one, and he was also very good for our national team. And he had this radio show, I think, I don't know, 20 years ago it started. It's called, when you translate it verbatim, it sounds like The Night Falcon.
Mhm.
And he does, the music he promotes is jazz, and he knows a lot about this genre of music, and he brings in interesting songs, interesting musicians. And it started, like I said, 20 odd years ago, and I think the show came back only recently at the end of last year, the beginning of this year. They brought him back. The station brought him back, and he has his show again. So
That's awesome.
yeah, yeah,
I
and
would I would love to bring our radio show back. It's just everybody's like, we did it a long time ago, almost 10 years ago. So, our lives are busier. It's
mm,
hard to kind of get people together. But we had a pretty successful radio show. We've had people like the Power Rangers on there, Dropkick Murphys. A lot of bigger names that probably a lot of smaller radio stations wouldn't have gotten. But I think
mm,
our personalities together, we had such an original show that people were drawn to it. It's like such a crazy premise.
mm, absolutely. And why did it end? May I ask?
We had gotten older and the schedules got busy
Mm,
and we weren't able to just consistently do it, you know?
mm,
So it became more of a chore than
mm,
a job, you know?
mm, mm. And do you think the new forms of putting out content might help? Like you said, because people do record uh, their shows as a podcast and publish it as a podcast. That might be your kind of, format to start
It it
anew.
it would definitely be something we'd be willing to try.
Mm-hmm,
We just haven't gotten together on a
mm-hmm,
regular basis to do something like that.
mm-hmm,
We just like I
mm-hmm,
said, lives are just so busy, you
mm-hmm,
know?
mm-hmm. And comparing your radio show and your book, who would you say was or is, in case of the book, your audience? Who was your audience of the radio show? What kind of people or age group? And versus the book.
I think it was college age kids for the radio show, and for the book, it's definitely gonna be a little bit obscure, a little bit younger, like
Mm-hmm.
10 to 12-year-olds
Mm-hmm.
kinda thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's the content is good for all ages.
Mhm.
I just think because it's a shorter book that it's gonna skew more towards younger
Mhm.
people, and I think the lesson in the book is kind of like, don't judge a book by its cover, and, um, about racism as well, because there was a
Mhm.
little bit of racism in the book, and this is where I kinda go to more fiction in the book, is because me and my nephew had already been related before we had done the radio show, but
Mhm.
in the book, it's more of we had just met each other for the first
Yeah.
time,
Yeah, yeah.
you know? Kinda caused a little bit more conflict, and there was a little bit of racism I had added into the book,
Mhm.
just to add just to add an extra layer of conflict. Because in reality, when we did the radio show, there wasn't really a lot of conflict. We had already been best
Mm.
friends and related.
Yeah.
He's more my brother than he is my nephew, we're
Yeah.
closer in age,
Yeah.
So, that I would say that would probably be the big difference between
Yeah.
real life and the book,
Yeah.
but other than that, I think the radio show had brought us closer in real life, and that's why I have these characters go in the book as they become closer from doing
Mhm.
the show together and
Mhm.
and raise enough money to save the radio station.
Mm. And since people already saw you and the cover of your book, um, how much input did you have on the cover, or did you ask a cover artist for
I
this
did
cover?
the entire cover myself.
Oh,
Yep. I had
okay.
asked 3 different artists to draw me up a cover, and I was trying to tell them, like, "Could you do, like, an Ice Cube meets Jeff Foxworthy, but without actually using their likeness, you know?" And all these artists all only heard Ice Cube and Jeff Foxworthy, and that's exactly what they gave me. And I'm like, "No, you guys gotta kinda change it a little bit so it doesn't look like them. I don't wanna come back and get sued for something." And they're like, "Ah," and then they never got it right. So I had asked all these artists, and we could never get it right. So I said, "I'll just do it myself and write up a sketch of what I really want." And I had showed it to a bunch of friends of mine. They said, "Dude, that's good enough just to be the cover itself. You just color that and make that the cover." And that's kind of the story behind the cover.
Because
And
the cover looks incredible.
well, thank you. I'm not a professional artist. It was kind of like a first time. I just needed to kind of get my ideas on
Yeah,
paper so
yeah.
people kind of understood. And it was more made out of frustration because I couldn't get all these artists to give me what I want. So, uh, thank you.
No, it does. It absolutely looks fantastic. That's why I asked you about cover art. It's fascinating. Yeah, yeah. See, hidden talent everywhere you go.
Right?
Absolutely. And you said, and since you live in Massachusetts, and that's also where the book is set, where the radio station is. Um, I don't get the idea of Massachusetts being too rural. Maybe that's only my idea. I have
But parts of
probably
it.
a complete wrong idea of Massachusetts.
People like to always think Massachusetts is just Boston.
Yeah.
And while Boston is a big part of Massachusetts, I'm on the other side of the state, which can be very rural. Because
Okay.
there's towns there that is just all woods, dirt roads, you know, nothing out there for miles, you know. Where my nephew lives, there's actually terrible Wi-Fi. They're still using like dial-up kind of Wi-Fi internet because it's very slow. Like you up there, there's no cell phone service. There's nothing. So there's very rural parts of Massachusetts still.
You see,
It's not all
you
city.
yeah, you see, that's a fascinating thing when we talk about the United States, or when we talk to people from the United States on our show, and the idea you get is, yeah, the most advanced country in the world and technology-wise and so on. And then you hear people say, oh, yeah, Wi-Fi is sketchy and there are parts where you do not even have a possibility to talk to people on the phone because, it's not possible. It's so rural that you can't do that. And that's something we don't have a lot here in Europe because, and it's also always fascinating when you see pictures or watch videos from small town America, and you think, okay, so you still have those landlines and those power lines and out there because we don't have that anymore. We have except for the huge ones, but
Mhm.
everything else is underneath. So you don't see the power lines in in places like Vienna because they're underneath there in the earth, also for the phone and so on. Uh, that's also why we can't imagine having storms and they're cutting out the power. It does happen. Of course it can happen, yeah. But
Yeah.
otherwise not not that much here.
Oh, it happens. It starts snowing, the cable starts going out, the lights start flickering, It can get pretty bad,
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I'll tell you this, I was kayaking one time and a moose had that's how rural it is. A moose came right in front of the car, almost hit it.
Oh, okay. I mean, all right, yes, there are parts in Austria where when you go, I don't know, hiking or something, you can,
Mhm.
no, well, you can't meet there's a possibility of meeting a bear, in the
Yeah,
southern part of Austria, in the mountains and so on. It could possibly happen, you know?
yeah.
And there are also parts where you can see a lot of deer and so on, but, you know, we don't have these huge predators. For example, here in Austria, I mean, the wolves are back, okay, since the fall of the Iron Curtain, but they don't go where people live in villages or cities, and just maybe in the more wooded areas or in the mountains, also bears, and that's what I find so interesting, and that's also the reason why I can imagine that radio still is important to people, where you are
Oh,
not.
yeah, people listen to it every morning.
Yeah, exactly, and where you do not need Wi-Fi or the internet, you can do so without it.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, I have people people who do the sports talk radio, movie radio, some just talk about movies. There's a lot of different kind of radio people. It's still big,
Mm,
and I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon.
yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, and when was the point where you decided to okay, although I no longer do this radio show, I'm going to write this book and give something kind of do something creative in a different kind of way and use this and make it
Well,
happen
so
for my audience.
I originally sold it as a movie script, and I wanted to make it into a movie because I thought our story was good enough to make like, maybe a TV movie or even like a short comedy or something. And I felt like every time I had pitched the script, people wanted to buy it so that I wouldn't make it. You know what I mean? So they would offer me money, but they were like, "We don't want to make it. We just want to stop you from making it." You know? And so I took somebody had told me you could just take the script of your movie scripts and turn them into books. I said, "That's a great idea because at least I could get it made as a book. It might take me 10 years to make it as a movie, but if I can make it into a book like this, get the story out there. If it's a good enough story, people will flock to it anyways. You know, it doesn't need to be a movie right away. And if it's a good book, people will want to make it into a movie at some point."
It's an interesting idea that you said that the first idea you had was writing a movie script or TV show script because there's a lot of new ideas out there and they only wanted to buy it so you can't do it, and that also
Right.
gave me the idea of asking, have you thought of crowdfunding this movie or TV
I'm
show?
not good at I'm not good with crowdfunding, and I wouldn't know the first thing of what to do if I got the money with it. I would be lost because it's the to do this as a movie, it's gotta be you gotta have people with good timing, good comedic
Yeah,
time, and you
yeah,
gotta have people with good chemistry.
yeah,
And then you gotta, on top of that, find people with good chemistry that are from these two separate worlds. I mean, there's a
yeah,
lot going into it. You know,
yeah.
me and my nephew had good chemistry, and it's one of those things. It was a one of a kind thing. So you would have to find these people that could really work off each other.
Mm,
And I think me crowdfunding, I wouldn't do it its service. You know, I if I did it myself, I
mm,
would need someone bigger with more
mm,
talent, more experience.
mm,
um, I thought about doing audiobooks for it though, just to
mm.
kinda get like,
Yeah,
get the ball kinda rolling.
yeah, yeah. And since you wanted to make it into a movie, okay, the next question would be your idea for the main characters. Who would play you, and who would play your nephew or the characters in your book?
I would want someone with a lot of charisma. I definitely picked Ice Cube for me and
Mhm,
Jeff Foxworthy for my
mhm.
nephew,
Okay.
because I think both of them have really good comedic timing, and they're ve and I think this premise would
Mhm,
get both of their careers back up again, where
mhm,
they could be A-listers from a good comedy like this, you know?
mhm.
Ice Cube's done Friday, he's done those movies, you know, he's done comedies, and I
Yeah.
think it would be a good fit just for the premise, you know? Not saying that he would be a good fit to play me, but it just for the premise alone, I think
Yeah,
it would fit, you know?
yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think those 2, you'd have to do it as a comedy, I couldn't see it as any other way, just because it's such a silly premise, you know?
Yeah. And a sitcom? Would it also be possible to spin this
I
thought?
I think it would be great as a sitcom, but I think it would definitely work better as a movie because you could get bigger like, with sitcoms, they tend to get, like, Z-listers, C-listers, like, people who don't have a lot of experience. If you're gonna do something like this silly, you gotta have somebody who can get the timing right, you know?
Mm,
But I could see it very much fitting a serialized TV show because there's a lot you can do with it. I mean, I'm definitely thought there's a lot more I could do with the books.
mhm.
I have I have premises for other books if I wanted to make more with these 2 characters. There's definitely a lot you can do.
Yeah. So that would also be your plan for the future, because one of my questions would be your future plans, and also then the question would be, do you think the book could be or could turn into a series?
I think it
Maybe?
very much could go that route if we can get enough people behind the book that enjoy it
Mhm,
and, want more
mhm,
stories from these characters. Everybody that I've given the book to said they love it,
mhm.
but I don't know if they're gassing me up because they know me or, you know, I would have to get more feedback from other people who
Yeah,
may not know me and, just picked up the book
yeah.
at a store or something. But, yeah, I could see it going into a series, and I could see it turning into a multimedia franchise. I could
Mhm,
see I'm planning on doing an audiobook for it at some
mhm.
point.
Yeah.
Um, I could see it somebody turning it into a short film as, like, a
Mhm,
proof of concept and maybe shopping it around as a script.
mhm.
'Cause I have the script ready to go if they ever call,
Yeah,
"Hey, we wanna make
yeah,
it." I have
yeah.
already completed that's how it started. I already have it completed as a script. They can take it. Um, yeah, I can see it going as a series.
Mm. Going completely indie then, because since you said you have the script completed already and they can go with that, they can run with that. So, dear indie creators, please, there you go. Here you have someone who can work with you, who knows what he's talking about, and who has his ideas ready in
and
his head and
and
on
and
paper.
I've worked for Disney before. I have
Mm,
experience writing scripts. Like,
mm,
I went to film school, so it's not like I'm talking out of my butt, I got experience.
yeah.
I just don't think I personally would do it justice, you know?
Oh, it's also fascinating. Fascinating facts. And may I ask, what did you do at Disney?
I was selling television pilots. They had bought 4 television pilots from me.
Mhm,
They didn't really go anywhere, but
mhm,
it made it to when you pitch for Disney, you have to pitch them an idea,
mhm,
pitch them a pitch Bible,
mhm,
and then after they've gone through all this, I mean, I must have had to pitch every idea. I probably had to pitch to them like 3 different times,
mm,
and they give you your feedback and stuff,
mhm,
and then it makes it to pilot,
mhm,
and then if you go from pilot, they'll order so many episodes or whatever, and then you gotta
mhm,
pitch them whatever comes next, and every detail goes through Disney,
mhm,
so I've done 4 pilots for them. That was gonna be my life, and I went into being an author, you know?
mhm, mhm. That's fascinating. And being an author, not a scriptwriter and turned author and being both. Um, what was the greatest challenge then turning the script into a book?
I think trying to expand it to be longer
Mm,
as a book and, kind of adding new scenarios that
mhm,
maybe would work better in a book than a movie,
mhm.
you know? Because a movie, it's, like, very visual,
Yeah,
you gotta do the visual gags.
yeah,
As a book, you gotta describe
yeah,
everything.
yeah,
You gotta really picture it in somebody's mind
yeah,
instead of showing it to
yeah,
them. So it's a different medium, but
yeah,
they're close
yeah,
enough where I could do the transition.
yeah, yeah. So writing dialogue is no problem for you since the scripts are all about dialogue.
Right, and especially when we used to do audio all
Yeah,
the time, it's all dialogue when you're on the
yeah,
radio,
yeah.
so the
Exactly.
the stuff just kinda came natural to me.
Yeah. And also the scenes, I suppose, because when talking to authors who had also started with script writing, um, you realize when you read the books, for example, they are more fast paced than books from authors who started as you know novelists.
Mhm.
So the pace is different, especially when you look at the chapter length. Chapters are usually shorter. It provides you with a certain kind of, like I said, a pace in the book,
Mhm.
and it also feels more like a film when you read those kinds of books.
I think timing is everything, when you're making stuff like that. You know, you I used to do dancing as a kid, and they do everything's timing.
Yeah, yeah,
So, you gotta time everything right to make sure it fits well in the scene and make sure everything kinda
yeah,
good, you know?
yeah, yeah.
It
And you said your TV show was more for college age kids or children or young adults. Let's put it that way. They're not
Mhm.
kids anymore; they're young adults by then when you go to college. But the book, your idea for the book was more for a younger audience. Although you said
Yeah,
it can be read
I
across.
think it's easier to write for a younger audience
Mm,
because the older you get, I feel like there's a stigma when you write for older people that it's gotta be, all about sex and drugs and, like, adult stuff, and, I live my life pretty clean. I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't smoke, so I feel like for me, it's easier to write for kids because that's just, like, kinda my natural life, I live a
eh,
very clean life. So, like I said, it's for all ages. There might be a little romance in the book, but it's nothing that's gonna turn graphic and,
mhm,
become an R-rated, phenomenon. It's very much, you a kid it's kid appropriate.
mm, mm. It's interesting that you say that because I don't know it was. I don't know the name of the author, and I think he also wrote for young adults. And he said, I think it was a he never reads the newspapers.
Mhm,
Because if you read, I can't remember who said it, because if you read the newspapers, you most certainly lose your innocence
mhm,
because you then get caught up in all this things that's going on, politics and the economy and so on, and it's better not to, and to, like I said, keep your innocence and makes it
mhm.
easier to write for children.
Right, yeah, and the children have a bigger imagination, like, it feels like when you become an adult, like, all that fun just goes right out the window, so I very much like to have fun, I like to have a big imagination and make these immersive worlds. My first book ever is a superhero fantasy, I love creating new worlds, new scenarios, new fun stuff for people to kinda get into,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It's a it's a lot more fun for me. The next book I'm writing has to do with space.
Hmm.
It's 5 kids get shot into space, you know?
Oh.
And I thought that was, like, the coolest thing to write for because every planet they go to, it's another alien, it's another new world for them to explore, it's another idea to come up with, and it was a lot of fun to write, you know?
And would you say that in this regard you do have a role model as an author, or let's say, is there, I don't know, a show, film, book out there where you would say that was the starting point for this idea?
I would say my heroes would be and they're not authors, but they're filmmakers, would be Steven Spielberg and Walt Disney. I feel like they've put their hands in a lot of different genres, and I kinda wanna be that book for, like, books. Have a book of every genre and kind of challenge myself to write new stuff in different areas and different, like, scenarios that I might not be comfortable writing, you know? So, I'd like to do a horror book. I'd love to do maybe a more adult book at some other point. But, just to kind of challenge myself to see if I can do it. It's I feel like in this not genre, but this field that you want to challenge yourself because it can get very boring doing the same thing all the time. I want a challenge.
And since you said you want to do as much as possible and get yourself challenged, do you think now, at the moment, there might be a genre which you wouldn't do at all, or would you say, I'm open to everything, no matter
I think
what?
I'm open to everything. I'm not open to doing adult stuff, adult content right away.
Mm,
I wanna
mm,
wait a bit for that because I have a lot of kids' books, and I
mhm,
don't want the kids to get,
mhm,
um, the wrong mindset and start
mhm,
reading these more adult books because my name's attached to it.
mhm,
If I do an adult book, I might release it under a different pen name
mhm.
just because I don't want the 2 audiences to be
Yeah,
mixed, but,
yeah.
I think right now I'm sticking to kinda kids genre books,
Mhm.
and will eventually move my way out of it after I've covered a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, it's also fascinating, and I get the idea or the impression, and I think I'm right in this regard that for young adults, there is at the moment there is a lot going on genre-wise and idea-wise, which we sometimes lack in the adult part of book writing.
Mhm. Um, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because there are lots of ideas that don't make it to the adult genre, and interesting ideas, fascinating ideas. And I sometimes get the idea, like you said, that people who write for young adults are more open to different kinds of ideas and they are not stuck like adults in their you know, or stuck or are pigeonholed already in their view. Also, authors sometimes can also get stuck in their view how and what to write.
Well, I think I don't wanna be like another J.K. Rowling where I'm just stuck writing Harry Potter for, 10 years. I don't wanna be stuck in the same series. I wanna
Mm,
do other stuff.
mm,
I have a lot of ideas cooking in my head um, and a lot more stuff to kinda expand on. I've
yeah.
written 3 books of 1 series, and I'm already sick of it. Like, I wanna go on to the next one. I have the Eternal Flame series. I have 3 books written for that, and
Mm,
it's just, I'm ready to kinda move past it already, so,
mm,
that's my biggest fear is being stuck
yeah.
on
Yeah.
one series.
Yeah, I do realize that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, like you said, J.K. Rowling, she's associated with Harry Potter. People always forget that she also wrote this series about this veteran under the pen name Robert Galbraith. And they made a huge and I think also quite successful TV show out of the books.
Yeah, I didn't even know that,
Yeah, see.
so
I think I mean, it's called, oh, the main character is called Cormoran Strike, and he's a veteran, and he now works as a private detective. And I think book 8, or is it book 9 that's already out? I think we're talking about book 8, The Hallmarked Man, Cormoran Strike book 8. Yeah. And
hmm,
she writes under the pen name Robert Galbraith, and they're very successful. Huh? And
huh,
it's it
more you know.
Yes, exactly. And for a long time, people didn't know, and I can't remember when it came out that it's her who wrote the books. So, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't
Yeah,
even know that,
see.
so,
And I highly recommend the TV show. It's very good, to be
yeah, I'll have to
honest.
check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. You should. I mean, that's the fascinating thing, and you can do more. I mean, with her name behind it, I suppose it's now even more successful because
Right.
people realize, oh, she can also write, detective fiction, and she does it quite good. I mean, let's be honest here. It's not just Harry Potter she can write. She can really
That's
write.
good.
So yeah.
Well, I
Uh
feel like as a creator, you wanna dabble yourself into other stuff, you know?
yeah.
Like I said, challenge yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, doing the books for children or young adults, and then moving on to some other genres like adult genres. Uh, I mean, like you said, you do not want to mix it with adult things like sex, blood, and rock and roll. I don't know. Hmm? But
Right?
if you if you think of, let's say, crime fiction, I'm a huge fan of crime fiction. Everybody knows that. There hasn't Yeah, well, there is a murder. Obviously, there is a murder. Otherwise, it wouldn't be crime fiction. But everything else, that's the beauty of crime fiction. It's so versatile
Mhm,
as a genre, and it's all. And for some books, it's just that it's all about who done it.
mhm,
So if you're not into this romance part or sex part, you can always leave it out. Because, like, when I have to be honest, when I read a crime fiction, yeah, okay, nice, you have a relationship. Yes, we know that. Can we go on with the story, please? Yes, thank you very much. And I don't mind if there isn't too much about, let's say, relationships of the main characters as the detective or so on. Yeah, okay, you have a relationship. Thank you very much. We know that. Done with it. Moving on with the plot. That's I think in this genre it is possible. Do you think that is something you could get behind, this kind of genre?
I have 2 scripts already ready to go for crime fiction,
Yeah,
so
there you go.
it's just a matter of when I'm gonna release them and all that. So yeah, I think I could dial myself into it. It's just a matter of time, you know.
Yeah, I suppose it. There you go. You already have it. I mean, good lord.
I'm
You
telling you, I can write a script in a day and be good. I can write, 300 pages like that if I'm invested, you know?
mm,
I used to write scripts in high school all the time and just start writing and keep going until I have a completed story. I have ADHD, so it's really easy for me to get distracted and just start writing and
okay,
get
okay.
right into it. So
Mhm. Yeah, but
yeah,
then turning it into a book, how long does it take you turning it into a book then when you have the script ready?
a day or two. I could pump out 4 books a year if I really was focused on it. This book I'm working on right now is taking me so long because every time I go to edit it, I'm like, "Oh, here's another idea I can throw in there, and maybe they can go here on a side quest, and maybe they can do this." I need to at some point. I just need to cap myself and hire somebody else to kind of
Yeah.
go through it and edit it because I keep falling in love with the book, and I want to add more. The last time I went to go edit it, which was a week ago, I had written 20,000 words to the already done script, and I'm like, I gotta stop. I gotta stop touching it.
Yeah, that's true because that's also one of the main reasons some books never get published, because
Right,
people coming back to the editing, oh, that's there. Oh, I have to change it. I have to change it. I have to add that, and it never happens then.
right. I was planning to release it in the beginning of February. I really was. And then I'm like, you know what? I gotta add 3 chapters to it right now, and I'll just start typing away, typing. At some point, I'm just gonna have to cut myself off and be like, okay, this is coming out in March. I'm gonna release all the material for it. You know, I'm gonna release for this one. I'm going to make a promotional video to
Mm.
like an animation
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
them going through
Mhm.
space, and that's gonna
Mhm.
promote the kind of book when it comes
Mhm.
out.
Mhm.
And that should only take 3 weeks to do.
Mm.
I'm fast with it. Once I get working, I can, you know,
Mhm.
do everything.
Mm. I got the idea that's also something that's happening more and more. People doing book trailers for their books.
Yeah, it just kind of helps people who wouldn't normally go buy this book
Mhm.
get wind of what's going on.
Yeah.
It attracts a bigger audience towards.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are into like visual media these days, especially with
Mhm.
the rise of TikTok and
Mhm.
YouTube
Mhm.
and you know Vine
Yeah.
and all
Yeah.
those other Instagram.
Yeah.
I think that having a trailer only doesn't it just helps you. It helps
Yeah.
bring
Yeah.
people to you.
Yeah. And also the question of, again, social media. You have to be present, don't you?
Yes, absolutely. I'll say last month I had 2 million views on my page. You gotta be active and you gotta be replying to people so they can come back.
Mm.
People will not will won't come to you if they don't feel like they can connect with you in some
Mm.
kind of way. You know,
Mm. Yeah.
I think that's why Walt Disney was so successful is because he became the face of Disney. He went
Mm.
out and was talking to people who would buy stuff. He made sure he was on The Wonderful World of Disney every week. He
Yeah.
was the face, you know?
Mm. And may I ask you, Remington, what would be your advice for anyone else out there who would like to write a book or a script or be creative in this regard?
Well, I'll say this, I'm stealing a tagline from Nike, but just do it, you know? Don't let anybody tell you you can't do it. There's always if there's a will, there's a way. And you know just go out and start writing. You got to start somewhere. um if you're gonna sell your book to a publisher, they're gonna want some kind of proof of concept. If you're gonna go write a script, they're gonna want a proof of concept. They're gonna want something to see to know that you're serious about this. So just start writing down, even if you write a checklist. Like I always start with bullet points, as you can see here. If I got an idea, I just write down bullet points, and I'll eventually get to turning it into an idea. If you have to sit down and write a checklist or write, oh, I want to do a book about the UPS man you know, delivering mail. You know, Start with a 3 act structure. Beginning, introduce the character. Middle, introduce a problem. Ending, solve it. Right? And then from those bullet points, you can add, okay, well, how's he going to get from point A to point B? All right, here's everything and fill in the blanks, and then start from there. That's like the easiest step to do, and you can get a completed story done like that. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes absolute sense, especially the first one, the Nike line. Just do it.
Just do it. That's a lot of people talk about doing stuff, but unless you actually try, you're not going to get anything done.
Exactly.
You gotta be able to push yourself and motivate yourself.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of haters out there that'll tell you, man, you got to go to school for that. You got to know somebody. You got the best advice I can give you is just do it for yourself. Don't listen to the haters. Don't listen to people who are going to put you down, and just get it done for yourself. I used to go to conventions. I used to physically meet people and
Mm.
do the handshake deal. Like, hey, if I come to you face to face, we can get a deal done today. I can get your information. I can get your contacts. We can set something up. And I think a lot of people respect me for coming out in person and
Yeah.
and doing those deals.
Yeah.
It's one thing to come in person, but a lot of people will come in on social media. It doesn't look professional. I'll go there
Yeah.
in person and do a
Yeah.
handshake deal. And, hey, how do we get this? How can I get you my stuff?
Yeah.
You know how can we make a deal happen today?
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely correct. I mean, even though we didn't meet in person, we made it happen.
Well, right, exactly. Absolutely. I think I do a lot of good selling at conventions for my books,
Mhm.
because I'll talk with people and go, "Oh, you're
Yeah.
into this? Well, you might want one
Yeah.
of my books.
Yeah.
Here's the stuff
Yeah.
I think I'm very good with word of mouth. I used to
Mm.
sell when I used to do Homemade the Redneck. I used to sell little CDs
Okay.
door to door. You know,
Ah.
uh, and
Mm.
really get people listening.
Yeah. Okay. You're a people person then.
Absolutely. I'm a people person. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a hustler. I get out there.
Well, good for you. And
Thank you.
I'm quite certain your fans are looking for more, and you said you're already working on the next installment.
Yeah, it should be out by the end of March. If I don't start writing again, because
What?
I'm telling you, I fall in love with this latest book, the one about them going to space. It For me, it's my current passion project.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Make it a series then. Start with book one and then keep going from there.
well, I'll work on it. It'll be done. I have
I'm quite
ideas for
certain.
where I would go with a sequel. So,
Well, I'm quite sure you will make it happen. uh, Remington, is there anything else you would like our listeners to know?
um, okay. I I will make sure to follow the Nerd Talk Podcast on Facebook.
Mhm.
That's where I put a lot of updates for my podcast, for my book, for personal conventions that we go into. If you want a convention schedule and you want to come see us in person and maybe watch one of my panels where we talk about movies, we always have a guest star. We've had Rusty Gilligan from he was on Little House on the Prairie. We've had the guys from other podcasts. I can't even think of the name, but we had the people from Casey Undercover. We have a lot of celebrity guests that come on our show because they feel comfortable. We don't do drama. We strict right to the good stuff. Everything the fans want. And we always do live shows where you guys can ask the questions, the burning questions that you want to these people, and they're live and we'll answer to you live. So
Splendid. And since you said you are absolutely into space, maybe let's do a talk about Babylon 5.
I've never heard of it.
No. You've
Yes,
never heard
heard
of
of it.
Babylon 5?
No.
Boy. Now you have to
I'll
look it up.
I'll have to look it up. It's going to be on my list.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, good Lord, he has never heard of Babylon 5. No, I'm shocked. Okay. Remington, it was an absolute pleasure talking to you.
It was a pleasure talking with you as well. I love being on the show, and I hope, it was a good experience
Yes,
all around.
absolutely. Absolutely. Please don't go away. Wait for me in the green room, and I will be with you shortly.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Dear listeners, I do hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as my guest and I did. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we hope to see you again for another episode. Until next time.